Suddenly, every church in Vicksburg was closed to us. The ministry had become wild and infuriated at the losses in membership. Those who had accepted the truth were put through tremendous pressure, but everyone was steadfast. The meetings on the Morning Star grew so quickly that within a month we had increased our classes to 4. In order to contain them all, I rented a hall in town for $10 a month until a church could be built. As usual, we had no money for buying either land or building materials. Money from the sale of the Gospel Primer, although it was selling at a rate of 15,000 copies a month, was only trickling in. Something was dreadfully wrong. Will Palmer made an emergency trip to Battle Creek to find out what was going on.
Brother, we know that the Primer is selling very well, but we on the Morning Star are receiving only a tiny part of the royalties. Why is that, sir?
Well, Brother Palmer, you must understand that the Review and Herald has expended a great deal of money on promoting the book. Then call porters take a big cut, and of course the cost of paper has gone up tremendously.
I've done a bit of research since I've been in Battle Creek. It seems that another writer has produced a book suspiciously similar to the Primer.
Well,
do you have any knowledge of it?
Yes, the book has been, it's been submitted to us for consideration.
Well, the Primer is about due for another edition. When will it be put on the press?
Well, we don't... Brother Palmer, we've decided that the Review can no longer publish the Gospel Primer.
What? No longer publish?
That is what I said, sir. I may as well tell you we plan to produce the other book rather than Brother Edson's book.
But why?
It's nothing personal, you understand. We find that we can realize more profit by selling the other book. Business is business, Brother Palmer.
Well, maybe so, brother. Maybe so. The Review has absolutely refused to print the Primer.
What will we do? That book was our primary source of income.
I don't know, Emma. Mother once warned me what would happen to the paper and the publishing house if the men who managed it were not men of piety and faith. It has come to pass. Is there nothing we can do, Will?
Well, they flatly refused to sign a new contract, but there might be a ray of hope.
What is that?
The General Conference has become dissatisfied with the management of the Review and Herald and have recently begun to publish some material independently.
Will they consider publishing the Gospel Primer?
They offered to print an edition of 20,000 copies.
But that is much too small an issue.
And they didn't even want to print that many. But Conference President Olson persuaded the association to take over the contract.
But a run of that size is barely enough to cover the remaining costs of the Morning Star, let alone cover our daily operating expenses. No, Will, I won't sign a contract like that. Never.
But you have to, Edson. Elder Olson and the General Conference have saved you from even greater calamity. If you don't sign, we'll be in even deeper trouble.
All right. I'll sign, but under protest.
No, the General Conference Association will not accept that.
I feel trapped, Emma. What can I do?
Sign the contract as it is, Edson. God will intervene to resolve our troubles.
As the weeks passed, our mission met with greater success than we'd anticipated. But opposition to our work became so intense that we were eventually forced out of the hall that we'd rented in Vicksburg. A church had to be built at once, or we could watch all the good work that we had done unravel before our eyes. Of course, we had no money with which to build a church or buy land on which to put it.
Well, the building is going very well. How did you manage to secure the lumber, Edson?
I made arrangements with a local sawmill to pay for the lumber on an installment plan. Same with the hardware.
Oh, this location on the corner of Walnut and East Streets was a lucky find. And only $2 a month lease. What do you figure the total cost will be?
About $100. And that's not bad for a building 20 by 40 feet. Hey, say, do you recognize that man coming up the street?
No, but I hope it's not more trouble.
Stone's my name. I'm alderman of this here ward.
Happy to meet you, Alderman Stone.
Well, sir, you ain't gonna be so happy when I tell you what I'm here for. You're Reverend White, ain't you?
Yes, I'm Elder White.
I'll get right to the point. Y'all gonna stop building this here church immediately. I have the authority to make y'all stop.
But why, sir?
I ain't gonna have none of them midnight church meetings with all that loud singing and shouting in my neighborhood. That church is for colored, and I'll fight it as long as I have to.
Construction on the new church stopped. We looked for ways to continue, but the alderman would not be moved. We prayed for the next 10 days. Nothing happened. Finally, Will Palmer went to Mr. Stone and pleaded with him.
Mr. Stone, if you will only consent to letting us finish the church, I assure you that you and your constituents will not be disturbed.
No loud singing and shouting?
None of that, sir. Our people don't do that sort of thing.
Well, all right, Mr. Palmer, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. If you can get the folks who live near the church to sign a paper saying it's all right to build, why, I'll let you go ahead.
For 2 days, Will and I canvassed the neighborhood from house to house. Will would go to the door and I would stand on the sidewalk and pray. We got the signatures and soon we were back to building. I wrote a letter to Secretary Nicola. Dear Secretary Nicola, slowly, very slowly, we are getting our little church built. Paying for it is a different matter. We've raised some money in donations from the Morning Star crew and from the colored people who will attend the church. They are so poor that 50 cents is the average donation. Yet they all want an interest in their church. And right there, I'd like to say that I never saw a firmer body of Seventh-day Adventists than this little colored company here in Vicksburg. The response to the plea for help was wonderful. The leaders and congregations of the church sent more than enough to pay for the building. At the opening ceremonies, with General Conference President O.A. Olson on hand to dedicate our new structure, Will Palmer had some pleasant news for the tiny congregation. He reported that enough money had been raised to paint the building and add batten boards to cover the cracks on the side walls. Besides that, comfortable seating had been added, and a fine pulpit was installed. To shouts of joy, Will informed the congregation that after all these unexpected improvements, there was still $20 left in the treasury. But summer was fast approaching, and we soon found out how dangerous, even deadly, those hot months can be. These mosquitoes are terrible. I swear they're as big as birds.
Ow! There's another bite to add to the ones I already have. They swarm in clouds around the Morning Star. I don't see how we can hold services on deck this week.
Will, you're right. Half the crew is down with malaria, including Emma. Elder Olson advised me to go back to Battle Creek during these hot months and come back in the fall. I think I'll follow his advice, and I urge you and your wife to do the same.
What will you do in Battle Creek?
Mother has given me permission to simplify and edit some of her writings on the life of Christ. I'll call the book Christ Our Savior, and try to get the International Tract Society to publish it.
Elder Tate has always been a friend of our mission. I'm sure he'll be happy to handle the book for you.
In Battle Creek, when the book Christ Our Savior was finally finished, Elder Tate handled its publication and arranged that all the royalty should be paid to me to further our work in the South. The new income would clear up our old debts and finance the next phase of our mission, which would be a trip up the Yazoo River and into the deep South. Emma had spent the summer with her mother in Colorado Springs. She arrived in Battle Creek in August, as eager to get back to work as I. In late fall, we boarded a train for our return to the South. It's good to be back aboard the Morning Star, Brother Halliday. Is the work still going forward?
Well,
are the people who accepted the truth still with us?
Yeah.
What has happened to the people?
Relax, Brother Edson. The work's been going forward in fine fashion. We've kept up the Bible school, church meetings, and the Bible study classes while you were in Battle Creek.
Have many deserted us?
Well, we've lost 2, but they weren't all that firm in the first place. And we may even rescue them in time. All the rest of our people have been growing in faith and knowledge.
I am most eager to see all of them again. Brother Halliday had kept things well in hand, and everything was looking good. Little by little, the attendance to our meetings increased. The colored people began to realize the greatness of God by hearing basic truths for the first time. Soon, medical missionary work began to play a large role in our mission. In 1896, Dr. and Mrs. W.H. Kinnett joined our small group. News of the doctor's arrival spread like wildfire, and soon he was traveling all over the area visiting the sick.
Whoa! Oh, boy. Hello? Is anybody home?
Yes, sir. Can I help you?
I'm Dr. Kinnett from the Steamboat Morning Star. I understand that your wife is sick and needs medical care.
She's sure enough sick, but I can't afford no doctor.
Don't worry about money. You don't need to pay me. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist physician, and I'm here to do God's work and help Him heal the sick. May I come in?
Oh, yes, sir. I didn't mean to keep you standing out in the cold. Except it ain't much warmer in the house.
Yes, it is cold in here. Don't you have any fire in the house for your sick wife?
We've fallen on hard times, Doctor. Used to have my own business. A tailor I was. I didn't do bad either. But my business fell off to practically nothing because of the depression the country's in. Things got so bad, I can't even afford the coal for the fireplace.
Well, can't you get fuel on credit?
Credit? No one gives a colored man credit, especially when he ain't got a job.
Well, let's take a look at your wife and get her on the road to recovery. And then we'll see what we can do to keep your house warm.
Thank you.
After attending the sick woman, Dr. Kinnett drove the buggy to his own house, loaded the back full of coal, and delivered it to the colored man. The man built a roaring fire, and soon the house was warm. Within an hour, Kinnett's kindness was known all over Vicksburg's Fort Hill area, and suddenly the prejudice began to fade away. The proof of this was soon apparent. On Monday and Wednesday evenings, we held night schools with usually about 25 people attending. Within a few weeks, the little chapel was crowded with over 150 potential students wanting to learn the 3 R's and the Bible. By the end of March, during a special meeting on board the Morning Star, Fred Halliday spoke on our progress.
Friends, I am glad to report that we have advanced our cause in wonderful fashion these last few months. We have made 289 visits to homes in the Vicksburg area. Medical treatments, 109. Prescriptions for medicine, 66. Office consultations and examinations, 34. Barrels of garments distributed, 14. Dorcas meetings for washing and mending used clothing, 5. Cooking school classes, 4. Bible readings, 117. And sermons preached, 26. And that's only up till the end of March. How's that, my friends?
Praise the Lord! Praise the Lord!
I was becoming anxious to take the Morning Star farther into the interior of the Delta country. But first, a great deal of overhauling would be necessary. I ordered a new engine and boiler to replace the aged ones. With much effort, the Star was lengthened to 105 feet with an entirely new upper deck. The lengthening of the boat allowed space for the new living quarters, plus a chapel and a small print shop. I started a new book entitled The Coming King, which was destined to become another bestseller. By midsummer, the work on the Morning Star was finished, and the big paddle wheel was ready to churn the water again. It's wonderful to have the Morning Star plowing upriver again, Captain Orton.
Aye, it is that, Elder White. She's running as smooth as a gull floating on the wind. For all her bulk, the Star draws only 20 inches of water.
How fast are we going?
With this new engine, we're making 7 miles an hour at just half steam.
Oh, that's marvelous. Not bad for a trial run, is it? Well, there's the bend. Turn her around when we reach the wide part of the river, and we'll head back to Vicksburg. That summer was the hottest we'd ever experienced in the South. Even the old-timers were wilted by the unmerciful sun. By August, Emma became ill with a fever caused by the heat. I was put down by the same malady a few days later. Emma was so sick that for a while I thought she would surely die. When we were well enough to travel, Emma took the train to Colorado to spend the rest of the summer with her mother, and I returned to Battle Creek to see to the printing of my new book. It wasn't until December that I was able to go south again, but Emma was still too frail to make the trip. It was a long, lonesome time without her, but I busied myself with a new venture.
We're now 110 miles up the Yazoo River, Elder White. That's Yazoo City, Mississippi, just ahead.
It's been an exhilarating trip, Captain Orton. Will we be able to pull right up to the city wharf?
I've got Brother Parker up in the bow with the lead line. How's the dam up front, Parker?
One full fathom, sir. There's plenty of water, Captain. You can pour right up to the landing.
All right. At 1/3, Mr. Klaus. This she goes. Easy now. All right, Parker. Take 2 men. Make ready the gangway. Back her off full throttle and shut her down, Mr. Klaus.
Aye, Captain. Team off. Paddle wheel disconnected.
Gangplank down and secure, Captain.
Good job. Well, here we are at Bliss Landing, Elder White. And there's Mr. Bliss himself, about to come aboard. I understand he's the biggest plantation owner around these parts.
Fine. I'll go down to the bottom deck and welcome him aboard.
I'm honored to meet you, Reverend White. I heard y'all was on your way about 3 days ago.
The honor is mine, Mr. Bliss. We made slow time the last 25 miles because of a broken drive chain. I'm afraid we're stuck here until another one arrives from Chicago.
Well, that's fine with me, sir. Yazoo City ain't much of a town, and the nearest church is more than 10 miles away, so folks here about ain't heard much preaching for the last 15 years. I hope y'all will hold a prayer meeting next Sunday.
We are Seventh-day Adventists, sir. But I will be happy to hold a meeting on Sunday next, if that's what you wish.
Oh, that'll be fine, mighty fine, sir. And there's a lot of folks around these parts that will attend.
Then it's settled. 1 o'clock on Sunday in the Morning Star's chapel. Unknown to me, our colored cook, Albert Green, had heard my conversation with Mr. Bliss. He left the Star and set out to invite all the colored people he could find to the scheduled church meeting. When time came for the Sunday service, I was amazed at the number of people of both races who walked up the gangplank. No religious meeting of any kind that included both white and colored people had ever been held in Mississippi since before the Civil War. I feared that I was in some trouble.
Reverend White, what is the meaning of this? I thought this meeting was to be for white people only, sir.
Mr. Bliss, I'm as surprised as you are. It seems that the boat's cook invited the colored people who live around here to come to the preaching.
Well, what are you going to do about it?
Well, there's nothing I can do about it. The colored people must be allowed to stay. I only hope my decision won't cause any friction.
Well, as long as they're here, I guess they can stay. After all, I've known most of these folks all my life. But the white people ain't going to sit with them. Y'all can bet on that.
I have an idea, Mr. Bliss, that just might accommodate both parties. I have a long curtain that I can hang right down the middle of the chapel. White people on one side, colored people on the other. You won't be sitting together, and I will be able to address both sides at the same time. I believe that was the first integrated church service in the South for many years back. The curtain was an affront to the colored people, of course, but it was something of a miracle that the two races would get together at all. The meetings went on like this for several months while we waited for our new drive chain to arrive. I was not partial to the dividing curtain, and I would have preferred to talk to the colored people alone, so that I might reach them more directly with the third angel's message. But the two races were getting used to being in the same room, and when we finally got around to building a church in the area, a mixture of races would not seem so inconceivable.
Are you Edson White?
I am?
Well, I'm the deputy superintendent of the county schools, and I'm here to tell y'all, y'all gotta make a choice about which class you want to work with.
Oh? How so?
If y'all wants to teach the whites, we'll give you all the support y'all wants. We need book learning and preaching, and it don't matter to us which denomination y'all is from.
That's fine with us.
But y'all will have to quit teaching the coloreds.
But why? The colored people are God's children, too?
I'll tell you why, sir. These coloreds round here outnumber us about 16 to 1. We've managed to keep them in their place so far, and we intend to keep it that way.
Am I to understand that I am forbidden to work with the colored people?
Oh, y'all can work with them if y'all wants, but if you do, the white folks around here will have nothing to do with y'all.
It's discouraging. Our work here at Bliss's Landing has come to a standstill.
Well, the chain drive has finally been repaired. Will you move the Morning Star away from here? I mean, you really have no reason to stay, Elder White.
I hate to admit it, Captain Norton, but that seems to be true. White people no longer attend the services, and colored people are so intimidated that few of them come anymore.
Well, what will you do?
I think we'll have to stick to our guns for a while. I don't think the whites will give us any trouble.
Hush up! I said hush up! We ain't never gonna figure out what to do about Reverend White and his steamboat if y'all keep on with this yammering. Now then, it looks like old White ain't about to teach just the whites in this here county. But it don't look like he's about to be scared off, neither. Now, any of you men got any suggestions?
Yeah, I got an idea.
All right, Chris Dawes, say your piece.
I'll go down to that boat with my old Winchester and hold it on that Reverend White while the rest of you boys bring the rope.
Hold on! I said shut your faces and just listen. We can't hang no preacher, Dawes. Where'd you get such an idea? I don't think any of y'all mean that.
No. Do you remember them stern wheelers that would speed by my place so fast the wake could almost wash my shack away? Yeah. Well, I asked them to stop in a real nice way, but they only laughed at me. Y'all remember what I did then?
No, I don't.
Well, I grabbed my old Winchester and I took pot shots at the wheelhouses as they went by. I didn't hit nobody, but after that, they took me serious.
Well, I should think they would.
So that old Reverend White better take me serious, too. And when I say I'll help lynch that old Yankee preacher, I really mean it.
More than a few white people around Bliss's Landing agreed with Chris Dawes, and the only reason a hanging party didn't visit the Morning Star was because cooler heads prevailed. But still, our group was persona non grata among both the whites and the coloreds. Now, at the urging of some of the brethren, we purchased a farm with the idea it would provide profitable employment for church members. However, by mid-March, we faced a dangerous situation. I had taken the Star downriver to Vicksburg to wait there for Emma, who was to arrive from Colorado. As we waited, ominous news reached us. The spring flood was coming, and due to the heavy rains and snow melt in the north, a virtual wall of water was rushing down the Mississippi towards us.
We'll have a rough time getting through this flood, Elder White. They say the Mississippi torrent is back 30 miles up the Yazoo River. That's about where that farm you bought is located.
We've got to reach the farm before it is flooded. We must try to save what we can.
I wouldn't worry about it. The farm is on high ground. They told you when you bought it that it never overflowed during flood time.
I know that is what I was told, but if the levee gives way at Greenville, all the land along the Yazoo will be under 10 feet of water. Oh, can you get a little more speed out of the Star, Captain Orton?
Elder, I've got her up to a full head of steam now. Can't go any faster against this current. But we should dock at your farm's landing at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
The water is rising about 6 inches every hour. I'm beginning to be worried.
That's not enough to cover the farm, Brother Holliday.
No.
The potatoes and the strawberry crop will be safe.
Well, I'm taking no chances. I'm having some of the men build a platform up in that big oak tree. When it is finished, we'll haul our wagon and farm equipment up there for safekeeping.
We should stack all our cordwood up there, too. Dry wood for the Morning Star's boiler will be impossible to find after the water goes down.
That's a good idea, Brother Halliday. Good. It looks as if the platform's finished. Let's get to work. There's a lot to do.
A few days later, the big levee at Greenville let go and the water rose 7 feet in one night, covering our precious vegetable and strawberry crops. But there were more disastrous problems all around us. Most farmers lost their whole year's income in that one horrible day. Farm animals drowned and houses were washed from their foundations and swept down the raging river. We, on the Morning Star, were safe enough, but we felt it our duty to help. We fitted the bow of the boat with a wooden square face, and this was to be attached to a long, flat barge. We then steamed from place to place, picking up families along with their animals, mules, horses, hogs, cows, and even chickens, and hauled them up to the high bluffs at Vicksburg. One plantation owner thought his land was safe from the rising flood, found the muddy water lapping at his front door. Terrified, he called for the Morning Star.
This is a very dangerous situation, Elder White. With the square head and barge attached to the bow of the boat, we're about 160 feet long. And still we must maneuver through that pecan grove to reach the plantation. I put a man on the front of the barge to take soundings, but I'm afraid we'll run aground. How deep are we up there, Parker?
Mark 1, Captain. Getting shallow.
We've only got 6 feet of water under us right now, and God only knows how many sunken branches and snags there are that could rip a hole in our bottom. Back off! 1/3, Mr. Crows!
You only got 4 feet of water, Captain. Reverse your engines, or you'll run aground.
Shut her down, Mr. Crows! Ahoy there on the bow! Are we running aground?
No, sir. You got 3 feet under you.
All right, we'll float her in. Keep me posted.
2 feet of water. All right, Captain Morton. The front of the barge is hitting dirt, but we will not be stuck. The wheel will back us off.
Well done, Captain Orton. Here comes the farmer driving his stock. Hey, mister, drive them up the gangway at the front of the barge.
Hee-haw! Get up there, contrary old mule. There. All my animals is aboard. I don't know how to thank you, gents. My tenant farmers will be along in just a little bit with their animals. Can we wait for them?
We can try, but with this heavy wind coming up, I don't know how long we can hold this position.
This is slow and dangerous work, Elder White. Sending the skiff out to the sharecroppers and bringing their animals to the barge one by one. I'm not sure how long I can hold the Morning Star in this position with this strong wind and current.
I know it is dangerous, Captain. After we load all the beasts, we still have to make our way through that pecan grove, and night is coming on. Good. The last cow's aboard. We can finally leave.
Reverend, one of my sharecroppers ain't showed up yet. Can we wait just a little while more?
I'm sorry, sir, we can't wait. I'll put my boat in great danger trying to sail through those pecan trees in the dark. We must leave now.
Oh, look! There he is now. See? Off to the right. The 2 men on the raft with the mules swimming behind. Come on, George, hurry it up. Pull that raft a little faster. Now, come on.
The tardy men and mules were finally aboard the barge, and Heavily overloaded, we made our careful way through the pecan grove and out into Broad River, headed for Vicksburg. All along the way, rooftops of houses floated with the rushing current, sometimes with despondent people sitting on them. Uprooted trees swirled downstream, making passage extremely perilous. We reached Vicksburg just after sunset. The city was filled with refugees. With housing impossible to find, the Southern Missionary Society opened their little church to the desperate people. After several days, the government sent tents and some food, but in our case, some good news came from the calamity. The attitude of the people around Bliss's Landing changed in our favor when they remembered the help rendered by the Morning Star and the Seventh-day Adventists. A letter to N.W. Ali, Superintendent, Southern District. My dear Elder Ali, I am pleased to report that the movable chapel which I shipped piecemeal to Yazoo City is now standing on the lot we purchased for it. Brother Halliday and I have put a down payment on a centrally located lot on which to build a permanent church. This is a section of the country in which land is owned and controlled by colored people and where whites will not interfere. Well, my dear, hard at work, I see. How soon will Elder Ali's letter be ready to mail?
I know you said you wanted the letter to go out as soon as possible, but it takes time to do 20 pages, especially on this new-fangled typing machine. Oh, I wonder if I'll ever get used to it.
But the gramophone helps, doesn't it? I'm sorry my letters are so long, but I want to explain everything in detail.
Yes, my dear husband, the gramophone helps. I can turn it off, which is something I can rarely do with you.
I admit that I am a bit long-winded at times, but the machine is also very handy in our prayer meetings. That wonderful invention can give band music, sing songs, and talk a blue streak and never run out of breath. Remind me to write a letter to Mr. Edison, congratulating him on such a versatile machine.
Not until I finish the 20-odd letters you've already recorded.
All right. The letter to Edison can wait.
Mm-hmm.
What I really came here to tell you, the new power press is now hooked up to the Star steam engine and is ready to roll. I'll have the first edition of our newspaper, the Gospel Herald, in circulation about mid-May in this fine year of our Lord, 1898.
What will the first issue contain?
Well, gospel work will be well represented in its columns, and my first editorial will be about how our Savior went about doing good works, healing the sick and telling the people about his Father. Then I will relate the story of our mission and what we hope to accomplish here.
I shouldn't think that first edition will be a large run.
Aha! That's where you're wrong. I am going to print 10,000 copies of that first edition and send them around as samples. I fully expect to have a 5,000 subscription list before the second issue goes to press. The work was going very well. We held a special meeting at Bruce's Landing with more than 125 people crowded on the boat, with as many more standing on the shore. On that day, a colored sharecropper named N.W. Alvin accepted the truth, a stand that would later cost him a severe horsewhipping and eventually a false conviction of murder. In response to my mother's appeals in the Review and Herald, the Sabbath schools had collected a total of $11,405 for work among colored people, and I expected a good portion of that to be earmarked for our mission. Brother Fred, as you know, I have been expecting a letter confirming that our work here would receive some money collected by the Sabbath schools. Well, I received a letter this morning.
Good. How much of the 11,000 are we going to get?
None of it.
None?
Not a cent. It seems that the entire amount has been appropriated for other denominational work.
But the money was collected specifically for work among colored people. What excuse did the General Conference have for its action?
They say that they are deeply in debt, and that they have just made substantial investments in Oakwood College in Huntsville, Alabama.
Don't they realize that we're in great need here? Because of the flood, the crops have failed. What little cotton that survived is full of boll weevils. People are living on crusts of bread.
I know, but what can we do? I've written to Mother. Perhaps she can shake up the General Conference. My mother did write a scathing letter to the President of the General Conference stating she thought the transaction with the Sabbath School funds to be fraudulent and dishonest. A careful investigation followed, and the leaders set about restoring at least part of the money. Later, when yellow fever broke out in Vicksburg, Mother suggested I send out an appeal to our people in the North via the Gospel Herald for a relief fund. In that same letter, she said,
I know that you are in a dangerous and most difficult field, made thus because of the prejudice of the whites against the blacks, and because our brethren have not interested themselves personally in that field to decide how it should be worked. Most of our brethren do not yet have the correct ideas, and button their coats over their hearts that should go out in sympathy and tenderness and encouragement to the laborers in that poor and destitute, neglected field. If the work is made too dangerous in one place, go to another, and labor so that the work shall not be destroyed.
Emma went north for the summer season, but I was determined to hold on. In spite of the terrible heat and constant struggle for funds, it seemed to me that we were on the eve of victory. I was 49 that summer of 1898, beginning to turn gray and on the downhill side of life. I began to experience the middle-age blues, but then something happened to buoy my spirit. My new book, Christ Our Savior, started to sell at an amazing rate. 6 months after its release, it had gone through a total of 75,000 copies. On the downside, it became obvious by September that crop failure in the South would be worse than previously expected. All crops, especially the money crop cotton, were almost too sparse to harvest. Heartache and destitution would once again be the lot of the white and colored sharecroppers. Brother Alvin, I know the people around here are having a very hard time. Well, I have some good news for them for a change.
Oh, what might that be, Elder White?
I made an appeal to our people in the North, and our brethren have responded. I have on board the Morning Star 55 barrels of clothing, dried foods, and other stores, with 50 more barrels on the way. I want to distribute all this to the people.
Oh, that'd be wonderful, Elder White. But when the people hear about that, they're going to mob the boat. Here at Camelstown, we've been hit bad by the flood. We need help real bad here.
Won't the plantation owners help at all?
Oh, sure they will. The company store will sell us colored folks seed, equipment, and the food we need. Only they'll charge us 3 or 4 times what it'd be worth. Then we'd be in debt to the plantation for the rest of our lives, just like slaves again.
I see your situation, Brother Alvin. We will help if you will do your part.
I'll do anything you want, Elder.
When the people come to the Morning Star for help, I'll send them to you. You know who among them are the most needy. You can read and write pretty well now. Your job will be to write them out an order for the clothes and food they need, and we'll distribute the stuff.
That sounds real good to me, Elder White.
All right, then it's settled. Well, it's getting dark, and I must go to the post office and get back to the Morning Star before the light is gone.
Don't you have some kind of lantern?
No, but I'll be fine as long as there's some twilight left. I was longer than I thought in starting back to the Star. The September air held a chill, and I huddled deep in my coat as I walked through the dark. A sudden storm came up, making the night blacker still. I failed to see a pile of heavy timbers left on the road by a work crew. My foot struck a timber, and I put my hand out before me to hold my balance. My hand went between the 2 timbers, and my head snapped back and hit a large square of wood sticking out of the pile. I thought every muscle had torn loose and that my neck was broken. I fell to the ground and I could not rise for some time. When I finally did so, blood was running down into my eyes and so blinded me I could hardly find my way down to the boat. I was so filled with the pain that all night I could find no comfortable position that would give me ease. In all my days since that accident, I have never been entirely free of headaches. To add to our woes, on Christmas Day, Emma was stricken with malaria and was still deathly sick when New Year's arrived. I too was fighting the chills and fever of the disease, which weakened me and racked my body with pain. Emma's condition worsened, and I feared for her life. Emma, are you awake?
Yes, Edson.
Oh, how I hate to see you like this, my love. As soon as you are able, I shall take you north and arrange a home there.
Do you mean a permanent home?
Yes, I do. I see no hope for a future for us here. The work is hard and unyielding, and our brethren in the north are indifferent. My heart is heavy and sore.
Shh, hush, my dear. The Lord will give you light.
No! I can see no light ahead, just thankless toil. All is dark. I feel the limit has been reached. A few days later, as I was sitting in the salon of the boat, the bitter irony of the situation crushed down on me. It seemed I would never be able to hold up under the weight of the work. I suddenly felt that the Mississippi mission had been a mistake, and I thought of my many business failures in the past. Was this mission to the colored people of the South just another of my failures? I broke down and cried like a baby. I had reached my lowest point. I had reached the lowest point in my career, perhaps in my entire life. But something kept me from giving up. Perhaps it was the desperate need of the colored people and the gratitude in their faces that made me want to keep going. Or maybe it was the determination and grit that I had inherited from my father and mother. Whatever the reason, I dried my eyes and looked to God and the future. And soon, things began to look better.
I'm feeling much better, Edson. In a few weeks I'll be able to travel, I'm sure.
We must give the malaria ample time to heal, Emma. But I think you're right. I too am feeling better. And I have another piece of good news. A committee appointed by the General Conference has decided to make restitution for the money losses sustained by the Gospel Primer.
That is wonderful news, husband.
And that's not all. They have decided to give us a share of money collected by the gospel schools. So, a pretty good understanding has been reached by all. In early February, after a profitable summer in Battle Creek, Emma and I returned to Mississippi. Because of the influence of Brother Alvin, the colored people around Vicksburg and Yazoo City were now more ready to accept us and our message. But the situation between coloreds and whites in the Delta was worse than when we had left.
While you were in Battle Creek, there'd been several incidents of cross-burning, and I heard that some colored families were run out of the area. I tell you, Elder White, something dreadful is going to happen. I feel it in my bones.
Brother Fred, we can expect tensions such as these at times, but I don't feel the plantation owners will try anything drastic.
But it's really not the owners who are causing the trouble. It's mostly the middle-class white townspeople. They feel the colored people are becoming too prosperous.
Too prosperous? Oh, that's absurd. The colored farmer is perhaps the poorest, most destitute man in this country. Mm-hmm. Too preposterous indeed. I wrote an article in the Gospel Herald why it was impossible for the colored farmer to succeed as well as his white counterpart. The high rent of ravaged land, the price of food and supplies, twice that which the white farmer pays, the deplorable remuneration that the colored man received for his crops. The white businessmen and rich farmers did not care at all for my observations. They blamed the colored leaders who had accepted the truth and went looking for a scapegoat.
Alvin! Come out of that cabin. We want to have a word with you. Alvin! You get yourself out here right now. We'll come and drag you out.
Oh, what y'all want coming to a man's house in the middle of the night and scaring his family half to death?
You've been hanging around with them Adventists, ain't you?
So? Adventists are good folk. They come down here trying to help colored people. Now listen, I know you, Virgil Dawson, even if your face is covered up with that hood. Now I want all of you to get off my property.
Woo-wee! You sure got uppity of late, ain't you? Must be that crazy Adventist preacher. Well, now maybe you need to be taught another kind of lesson. Abner, you got that bullwhip?
Yeah, I sure have. And it's all ready and waiting for the taste of somebody's backside. I wonder who.
Now, just a minute now. Now, whipping went out with slavery more than 40 years ago.
You're mighty right, but we're reviving it tonight, starting with you.
Hey, kid boys, don't let him get away.
He got him right in the middle of the circle. He can't get away now.
What are you waiting for, Abner? Use that bullwhip. Woo! Ah!
I met Brother Alvin the next day on a Vicksburg street. Good morning, Brother Alvin. Are you going possum hunting with that rifle?
I'm going hunting all right, Elder White. But it ain't for no possum. Less'n you ever saw a possum with 2 legs.
What do you mean, Brother Alvin?
Last night, I was visited at my cabin by some members of the local Ku Klux Klan. Now here, Elder White, take a look at my back.
Oh, my. Your back is cut to ribbons. A bloody mess. How many of them were there?
Maybe a dozen of them. I could have took care of 1 or 2, but a dozen was too many for me. And I'll take care of them with this, though.
A rifle is not the way to do this, brother. Remember, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Mm-hmm. But I'm going to help him. Them white men are going to pay for cutting me up with that bullwhip and causing my family to be scared nigh to death and hunting my wife.
What good will it do your family if you shoot any of those Klansmen? You'll just stir up trouble for all the colored folks around here and wind up in jail for murder. And the denomination will be in trouble, too, and God knows we've got enough of that already.
You're all right. I'll do what you say. But I tell you, Elder White, I ain't gonna take it no more.
I finally got the rifle away from the giant colored man. A few days later, Brother Alvin moved out of the area to avoid further trouble. But the poor man's difficulties were just beginning. A month or 2 later, a man who hated colored people gave a Vicksburg newspaper a false report that Brother Alvin had murdered a small colored boy. Without investigating the story fully, the paper printed the story as fact with headlines that shouted, "Fiendish murder of a little Negro boy by a Negro man." On the strength of the story, Alvin was arrested and held without bail. With much danger to myself, I visited Brother Alvin in jail.
Here's that Negro Alvin's cell, Mr. White. Y'all got 10 minutes.
Elder White, am I glad to see you.
Oh, I'm glad to see you too, Brother Alvin. But I'm sorry it has to be under these circumstances. How are they treating you?
Just like any other colored man. Real bad.
They're saying in the press that you took up with a colored woman with a child, leaving your wife and family.
Elder White, you know better than to believe that. I just farm my plot of ground and mind my own business.
But there was a child?
Well, there was a child, all right, a little boy, sir, who was sick and half starved to death. and I took him in and treated him like one of my own children.
But he did die.
Yes, sir, he died, but not by my hands. You see, he got the smallpox and
Dysentery?
That's the word. Well, one day he's lying out on the porch, getting fresh air, and I'd been a little under the weather myself and was to bed in the house. Now, I hear the boy. He tried to get up, but he must have got dizzy or something, and he fall 5 feet off that porch and hit his head on a big iron wash tub. I tried to get a doctor to come, but he wouldn't, because I ain't have no money. The boy, he died that same night.
So that's what happened. What does your lawyer say?
Elder White, I ain't got no lawyer.
Well, we'll get you one. The court has now set bail at $1,500, and I'm going to try to raise it and get you out of here until your trial. You can stay aboard the Morning Star until then. On the day that my colored brother went to trial, some of the jury members were the very men who had horsewhipped him so unmercifully. Realizing that without a corroborating witness, his trial was already lost, the colored man accepted the prosecutor's offer to plead to a lesser charge of manslaughter.
The prisoner will stand. N.W. Alden, you've been convicted of manslaughter and I now sentence you to 10 years at hard labor in the Mississippi Penitentiary. Have you anything to say before you're taken away?
Your Honor, I swear before God that I ain't had nothing to do with that poor boy's death. Now, my friend and pastor here, Elder White, can you
Take him away, bailiff.
Elder White!
Don't worry, Brother Alvin. I'll find you and help you.
Try as I might, I was never able to find out what finally happened to that valiant colored man who had paid so much for accepting the faith in the Bible Sabbath. But in spite of these kind of setbacks, the work continued to prosper in the Delta region under Fred Halliday. The feeling grew within me that I had done all I could in the Vicksburg and Yazoo City area. I had no faith that I should retire to Battle Creek either. I felt there must be some place where I could raise the standard of truth and build up the work among the colored people. My mind was now directed to Nashville, Tennessee, a city midway between North and South, a place where my health would better endure the climate. That summer in Battle Creek, I talked of my plan with my old friend, Will Palmer.
You've lost weight, Edson. Are you taking good care of yourself?
As good as I can, Will. A persistent bout of malaria is bringing me down. That is why I've decided to take the Morning Star to Nashville to continue our work.
Well, that sounds like a good plan. But you are worried about something. We've been friends too long for me not to notice. What's the matter?
You're right, old friend. I am worried. Very worried.
You've always been a worrier. Ever since we started the Southern work years ago. Now what's troubling you now?
Someone has published a book suspiciously similar to my book, The Coming King. Similar. It's almost a direct copy in size and content. And it's being sold for a price much less than my book.
Can't you do anything about it?
Not a thing. And to compound the problem, another person, and I won't name him, he claims he is the author of The Coming King.
Why, no one will believe such a ridiculous tale.
Nevertheless, all this is cut into the sale of my books, and you know how badly the Southern work needs these royalties.
When will you take the Morning Star to Nashville?
In the autumn of 1899. The Cumberland River is plenty deep for navigation, as you know. I've written letters to various people around the Nashville area, and the racial problems seem much less intense there.
It sounds like it will be a splendid place to continue your labors, my friend.
I wish you could be there with me, Will. Just like the old days.
I wish I could be there, too, but I'm afraid my missionary days are over, old friend. But go, with my best wishes and God's blessing.
In 1900, Mother had returned to the United States from Australia. In March, she traveled to Vicksburg to dedicate the new church. Then she traveled to Nashville to visit me and to attend the convention of the Southern Missionary Society. She then returned to Battle Creek, where she made a strong appeal before the General Conference for the entire work in the South. She called for reorganization of the General Conference, and when Mother spoke, everybody listened. Although I didn't realize it, the work of the Morning Star was almost finished. But there was one more important trip left in the old girl. On June 8th, 1904, the Star steamed from Nashville with a most distinguished party.
Oh, Edson, I do love traveling on water. I always have. The scenery is so lovely as we slip between the banks of this calm river. Ah, so lovely. Your father would have loved this trip.
I'm glad you're enjoying the ride, Mother.
I am indeed. The rest and peace are doing me a world of good.
I hope that Percy McGann and Edward Sutherland are enjoying the trip as much as you are. I haven't seen either of them today.
They left the boat at our last docking place.
Oh? Why's that?
They are searching for a place to build a school. They have worked so hard, those two, searching everywhere.
Well, there's a lot of prime land around here in Tennessee, and much of it is almost ridiculously inexpensive. I'm sure they'll find something.
You have a splendid boat here, Edson. You should be proud of the Morning Star and the work you have done.
Thank you, Mother.
Will she ever cruise the Mississippi River again?
I just don't know. The Star is an old lady now, and her work is almost done.
Well, son, some of us old ladies have a lot of life in us yet.
In Mother's case, she was to have almost a dozen more productive years. But not my beloved Morning Star. In 1905, she sank. Mother suggested that she should be raised and pulled up on shore as a memorial for the role she played in starting the Advent movement in the South. Eventually, I did raise the aging hulk and place it under some trees in the front of my house to serve as an office. Not long after, the Morning Star burned to the ground.
The boiler of the Morning Star was sent to Riverside Hospital in Nashville, where it continued to serve black Americans for years. The metal star, which was the boat's emblem, and the ship's bell were presented to Oakwood College. Edson White's work was not quite done. He established a publishing house, which later became the Southern Publishing Association. But as time went on, he seemed to find it more and more difficult to handle his business affairs. He became crotchety and hard to get along with. There is no doubt that his best years were those spent on the Mississippi, opening Adventism to the Deep South. Edson White died in Marshall, Michigan in 1929. But the work he started went on and prospered, although there is still much to be done. As Ellen White admonished,
"The black man's name is written in the book of life beside the white man's. All are one in Christ. Birth, station, nationality, or color cannot elevate or degrade a man. Only character makes the man. Those who slight a brother because of his color are slighting Christ."